Hello everyone, and welcome to my channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Big surprise. Colin is forced to reveal the truth. Victor is Kane's biological father. In a week of bombshells in Genoa City, the most shocking twist yet takes center stage, unraveling in a way that leaves every character reeling and fans gasping, because the moment Colin Atkinson is cornered, pressured, and finally forced to reveal the truth, he sets off a tidal wave of drama that forever changes the very core of Kane Ashby's identity, with ripple effects touching Lily, Jill, Devon, Nikki, Jack, Adam, Victoria, and of course Victor Newman himself, who is blindsided by the revelation that he is Kane's biological father. It begins when Kane, after months of strange coincidences, offhand remarks, and lingering suspicions about his past, demands answers from his scheming father Colin, who has been hiding something monumental for decades, and while Colin tries his usual evasive tricks, insisting that the past is better left buried and that Kane should simply focus on his new opportunities in Genoa City, Kane pushes harder, invoking Lily, his children, and the fact that lies have already destroyed too much of their family. Jill, who has been increasingly frustrated with Colin's secrets, adds pressure as well, snapping at her husband and warning him that if he doesn't finally come clean, he will lose not just Kane's trust but hers as well, and it is in this moment of high emotion that Colin breaks, his usual smug bravado cracking as he blurts out that Kane's entire life has been built on a falsehood, and that the man he believed to be his father was never truly his dad at all, because the truth is Kane's biological father is none other than Victor Newman, a revelation that instantly sends the room into stunned silence. Kane reels, unable to process the words, his face shifting from disbelief to anger to numbness as Jill gasps, clutching her chest, whispering that it can't be true, while Colin insists he has documents, proof, and a long-buried paper trail that ties Kane's conception back to Victor's wild and reckless past, a time when Victor had no idea the consequences of his actions in Australia, a fling that resulted in Kane's birth, with Victor never even knowing he had fathered another son. Kane, struggling to find words, lashes out, accusing Colin of lying, manipulating, and trying to tear him down as he's done countless times before. But Colin, desperate now, insists that for once in his life he is telling the truth, that he can prove it, that everything Kane thought he knew about his family has been a carefully constructed illusion, and Jill, furious, demands to see the so-called proof, reminding Colin that if he is lying, it will be the end of their marriage for good. Colin reveals he has held onto DNA results for years, hidden them away in a bank deposit box, terrified of what unleashing this truth would mean, not just for Kane but for Victor, for Jill, for the entire Newman family, and now that it's out, there is no going back, and Kane, shaken, mutters that he needs answers from Victor himself, storming out, as Jill glares at Colin with disgust, vowing that his manipulation has finally destroyed everything. Meanwhile, at Newman Enterprises, Victor is already embroiled in his usual battles with Adam and Victoria, trying to maintain control of his empire when Kane barges in, his voice shaking with rage, demanding to know if Victor has any knowledge of this supposed connection, and Victor, thrown off but calm, insists he has no idea what Kane is talking about, that he has never been told anything about fathering Kane, and demands to know who put such nonsense in his head. But when Kane reveals Colin's claim and the supposed existence of DNA proof, Victor stiffens, his mind racing back to his days in Australia, his past dalliances, his mistakes, and for a brief second, a flicker of recognition flashes across his face, one that Kane notices immediately. Victor, never one to show weakness, tries to brush it off, declaring that even if there were some truth to it, it changes nothing about Kane's life or his role in Genoa City. But Kane isn't satisfied, yelling that it changes everything because it means Victor is his father, which explains so much about why he has always felt torn between darkness and light, ambition and loyalty, and most importantly, it means he has been lied to his entire life by the very man who raised him, or rather, the man who claimed to, Colin, who orchestrated his path with half-truths and scams. Victor's children are quick to pick up on the drama, with Victoria confronting her father about yet another secret son, furious that this could undermine her place in the family and the company, while Adam smirks, seeing Kane as a potential ally in his never-ending war against Victor, gleefully remarking that the Newman legacy just got more complicated. Nikki, heartbroken, begs Victor to confirm whether it's true, but Victor insists he must see the evidence first, though in private he admits to Nikki that there was indeed a brief fling in Australia. that he thought was meaningless, but if it resulted in Cain, then he has a responsibility to face it, and Nikki, ever supportive, warns him that the fallout could destroy not just their marriage but the entire Newman dynasty. Back at Chancellor Winters, Lily is stunned when Cain tells her the truth, tears filling her eyes as she realizes everything about Cain's past has been rewritten, and Devon is quick to worry that if Cain is truly a Newman, his ambitions could spiral out of control, putting their business and family ties in jeopardy, while Jill, caught in the middle, must confront not only her husband's deceit but also the possibility that her former son-in-law is now part of the powerful Newman bloodline, which complicates her relationship with Catherine's legacy and Chancellor Industries. The fallout spreads through Genoa City like wildfire, with whispers everywhere. Phyllis and Jack speculating that Cain's new Newman connection could give him leverage against Jabot, Abby, worrying about how yet another sibling could shake up her life, and Adam plotting how to use Cain's anger at Victor to his advantage. In the midst of it all, Cain struggles with his identity, questioning who he really is, whether he's destined to repeat the mistakes of Victor, Colin, or forge his own path, and in a raw moment of vulnerability, he admits to Lily that he doesn't know if he should hate Victor for abandoning him or Colin for lying, or whether he should embrace the truth and use it to redefine himself. Victor, after receiving the DNA proof from Colin, is finally forced to admit that Cain is his son, and though he tries to keep his stoic mask, even he cannot fully contain the shock of realizing he has another child, a grown man with a complicated history, a man who has been both hero and villain in Genoa City, much like himself, and the parallels are undeniable, which rattles him more than he wants to admit. As Cain stands before Victor, demanding recognition and answers, Victor finally utters the words that will change everything. "You are my son," sending Cain spiraling into
an emotional storm where anger, relief, and confusion clash, while the Newman family explodes into chaos, alliances shifting, old wounds reopening, and the future of the Newman legacy more uncertain than ever, with Cain caught in the middle of it all, torn between the father who lied to him and the father who never knew him, and determined to carve out his place in a world that just became infinitely more dangerous and powerful with his bloodline revealed. The revelation that Colin Atkinson blurts out, that Cain Ashby's biological father is none other than Victor Newman, becomes the most explosive shock Genoa City has witnessed in years, and the weight of that single truth ripples outward in ways that no one, not even Colin with all his twisted games and manipulations, could have fully anticipated, because in that moment Cain feels the floor drop out from under him, his entire identity shattering into a million pieces as Jill gasps in horror and demands proof while Colin insists he has it, that he's kept the evidence hidden for years, and though Jill despises him for his deceit, she can see in his eyes that this time he isn't bluffing, and Cain, trembling with rage, storms out needing answers directly from Victor, while Jill follows close behind, furious at her husband for detonating a bomb that may very well destroy not just Cain's life but the Newman dynasty too. At Newman Enterprises, Victor is in the middle of another heated boardroom clash with Victoria and Adam, both trying to undercut each other as usual, when Cain bursts in unannounced, his eyes blazing as he demands to know if Victor has been lying to him his entire life, and Victor, taken aback but never one to let his enemies see weakness, calmly asks Cain to explain himself, but when Cain spits out Colin's confession, that Victor is his father, the room freezes, Victoria's jaw dropping in shock while Adam smirks like the cat that swallowed the canary, clearly delighted at the prospect of Victor having yet another illegitimate heir to deal with. Victor insists it's nonsense, demanding to know who put such an idea in Cain's head, but as Cain lays out Colin's claim, the mention of DNA results, and the timing of Victor's past in Australia, a flicker of recognition and unease flashes across Victor's face, and Cain seizes on it, shouting that Victor knows it's true, that he's known all along and simply chose to abandon him, which prompts Victor to roar back that he had no idea, that if this is true it was hidden from him just as much as it was from Cain, but Cain doesn't believe him, too consumed by betrayal and fury to see Victor's own shock. Victoria snaps, accusing her father of keeping yet another dirty secret, livid that this supposed brother could threaten her position in the company, while Adam claps slowly, taunting Victor about how poetic it is that Cain, a man with a checkered history of deception, schemes, and half-truths, might be his son, suggesting that the Newman blood is unmistakable because Cain, like Adam, has lived his life in the shadows of lies and ambition, Kane, unable to listen to Adam's smug remarks, shoves him aside and demands Victor look him in the eye and deny it, and when Victor can't, when the great Victor Newman is rendered speechless for a long, tense moment, the silence becomes its own kind of answer, driving Kane into a frenzy as he storms out, slamming the door so hard the walls tremble. Back at the Chancellor Mansion, Jill paces, distraught, torn between worry for Kane and fury at Colin, who sits there smug despite everything, insisting that he only told the truth because Kane deserved to know where he came from, and Jill spits back that the only reason he finally cracked was because he was cornered, because his lies were catching up to him, and she swears this time there will be no forgiveness, that his marriage to her is truly over if even one piece of his claim is false, but Colin, for once, doesn't gloat. He insists he's telling the truth, that Kane is indeed Victor's son, and that no matter how much Jill despises him, the DNA evidence will speak for itself. Meanwhile, Lily is blindsided when Kane tells her the news, her face crumpling as she realizes that everything she thought she knew about Kane's family history has been obliterated, and she worries that Kane, already prone to destructive spirals, will let this revelation pull him back into his worst instincts. While Devon warns that if Kane embraces the Newman name, Chancellor Winters could be caught in the crossfire of Newman family wars, something their company might not survive. As the news spreads through town like wildfire, Genoa City becomes abuzz with speculation. Phyllis slyly remarks to Jack that Kane's new Newman connection could give him leverage to challenge Chabot. Abby frets that another sibling could threaten her standing in the family, and Sharon warns Nick that Victor's latest secret might tear the Newmans apart at the seams. Adam, ever the opportunist, sees Kane as a potential ally and approaches him with an offer. If Kane embraces his Newman blood, they could join forces, two outsiders who were never fully accepted, and together they could take Victor down. But Kane, torn between anger at Victor and disgust at Adam's manipulations, rejects the idea, though a part of him wonders if Adam is right, if perhaps his destiny is to embrace the darker side of his lineage and carve out power for himself in the Newman Empire. Victor, struggling privately with the truth, confides in Nikki that he does remember a fling in Australia decades ago, one that meant nothing at the time, and if it produced Kane, then he has a responsibility to acknowledge him. But Nikki, though supportive, fears this revelation could not only devastate their marriage but also fracture the Newman family forever. With Victoria already furious and Adam already plotting, Jack, sensing opportunity, toys with the idea of drawing Kane to Chabot, exploiting his bitterness toward Victor, while Jill, feeling protective of Kane despite the chaos, warns Jack not to meddle, though deep down she fears Kane's desire to prove himself as Victor's son will push him straight into corporate warfare. When the DNA results finally come back confirming Colin's claim, there is no denying it any longer. Kane is Victor's son, and Victor, forced into a corner, admits it publicly in a tense gathering at Newman Ranch, telling his family that he did not know but he will not deny his blood, uttering the words, "You are my son," as Kane stands there trembling, torn between rage, relief, and confusion, while Victoria storms out in disgust. Adam grins in victory, Abby cries quietly, Nikki tries to hold the family together, and Jill watches with a mother's heart breaking for the boy she once tried to protect. Kane, overwhelmed, leaves the ranch, wandering Genoa City alone as memories of his past flood him, his deceptions, his failures as a husband and father, his desperate attempts to belong, and he realizes that maybe his entire life has been a reflection of Victor's shadow, the good and the bad, and that now he must decide whether to embrace this identity, to claim his place as Victor's heir, or to reject it and forge his own destiny. But whatever he chooses, nothing will ever be the same again, because the truth is out, the Newman legacy has been forever altered, and Genoa City will never look at Kane Ashby, or Victor Newman, the same way again. The fallout from Colin's bombshell grows more explosive by the hour, because once the DNA test confirms the unthinkable, that Kane Ashby is indeed the biological son of Victor Newman, shockwaves tear through every corner of Genoa City, and no one can escape the consequences, least of all Victor himself, who is confronted at the Newman Ranch by none other than Jill Abbott, a woman who has clashed with him for decades, who storms in without invitation, eyes blazing, declaring that Victor has once again destroyed lives with his careless actions, and though Victor bristles, reminding Jill that he never even knew Kane existed until now, Jill fires back that ignorance is no excuse, that Kane grew up lost, lied to, and manipulated because Victor wasn't there to raise him, because Victor was too busy building empires and crushing enemies to notice the life he left behind in Australia. And Jill accuses him of robbing Kane of stability, of a true father figure, of any chance at knowing who he was, and Victor, his voice low and dangerous, warns Jill to watch her accusations, but Jill doesn't back down, telling him that he owes Kane not just his name but a chance at the life he was denied, and Victor, rattled in a way few can achieve, says coldly that Kane is no boy in need of parenting, he is a grown man who has made his choices, some good, some bad, and if Kane wants to stand as a Newman, he must prove himself, but Jill snaps that Kane doesn't need Victor's approval, that Kane will survive in spite of him. Though deep down Jill fears Kane might be seduced by the very power and influence that comes with the Newman name, meanwhile, Lily, unable to let the truth sit unchallenged, seeks out Victor herself, confronting him at Newman Enterprises in a charged moment where she demands to know what role he intends to play in Kane's life, reminding him that Kane has struggled with identity and self-worth for years, and that this revelation could push him over the edge, but Victor, as always, keeps his cards close to the vest, insisting that Kane must decide for himself whether he wants to claim his Newman blood, and Lily, her eyes filled with tears, pleads that Kane doesn't need more pressure, he needs compassion, he needs someone to anchor him, but Victor, with that chilling calm, replies that Kane is a grown man and that weakness is not a luxury in this world, words that leave Lily more fearful than ever that Kane is about to be swallowed whole by Victor's shadow. As all this plays out, Adam sees opportunity in every crack forming around him, cornering Kane in a quiet moment at society where he leans in, whispering that the two of them are cut from the same cloth, both denied by Victor, both judged by their pasts, both underestimated, and if they joined forces they could claim everything that's been withheld from them, painting a picture of a new alliance where Kane finally gets the respect, power, and family legacy he's been cheated out of, and though Kane insists he wants nothing to do with Adam's schemes, Adam smirks knowingly, telling him that sooner or later the desire to prove himself will be too strong, that the Newman blood in his veins will demand recognition, planting seeds of temptation that Kane cannot easily shake. Jack Abbott, too, recognizes the chaos as an opportunity, pulling Phyllis aside to strategize that if Kane embraces his Newman connection, Jabot could be caught in the crossfire of another Newman war, but if they approach Kane carefully, appeal to his need for belonging and power, they might steer him away from Victor and use him as leverage, and though Phyllis warns Jack that playing with Kane's fragile identity could backfire spectacularly, Jack insists it's worth the risk, because any fracture in the Newman family is a chance for Jabot to gain ground. Devon, meanwhile, grows increasingly concerned for Lily, watching her try to hold Kane together as he spins between anger at Victor, disgust at Colin, and confusion about his future, and Devon warns that if Kane dives headfirst into the Newman world, he'll lose himself completely, but Lily, torn between love and fear, doesn't know if she has the strength to pull him back this time. The tension finally erupts one evening when Kane, emboldened by anger and the sense of betrayal from a lifetime of lies, confronts Victor again, this time not with questions but with demands, declaring that if Victor wants to call him son, then he must acknowledge him publicly, give him a seat at Newman Enterprises, and recognize him as part of the legacy, and Victor, staring him down, says with quiet intensity that the Newman name is not given, it is earned, and if Kane wants his place he must fight for it, which only enrages Kane further, pushing him closer to Adam's orbit, closer to the dangerous temptation of seizing power at any cost, while Jill, watching all this unfold, prays that Kane doesn't let the Newman curse consume him, that he doesn't let Victor's cold, ruthless world destroy what little goodness remains in him. Nikki tries to mediate, begging Victor to handle Kane with gentleness, to acknowledge the damage already done, but Victor shrugs off her pleas, convinced that Kane, like all his children, must either rise to the challenge or be crushed by it, and in the midst of all this chaos, the people of Genoa City whisper about the newest Newman, some curious, some skeptical, some fearful, all knowing that the revelation of Kane's true parentage has not only rewritten history but ignited a fresh storm that will leave no one untouched, and as Kane stands alone late one night on the Chancellor Estate terrace, staring at the city lights, he whispers to himself that he doesn't know whether to embrace the name Newman or to burn it all down, but either way, his life will never be the same again, and neither will Victor's, because the truth has finally come out, and the consequences are only just beginning.